Hello and welcome to Annie's Short Stories. I hope you enjoy this story. I'm going to try and upload a new story each day. The Mystery of the Bent Bookmark. The scent of aged paper and polished wood filled the air as Holly Arnold stepped into the grand, labyrinthine halls of the Elder Tree Library. It was a place of whispered secrets, where bookshelves towered like sentinels guarding the wisdom of centuries. Holly, a young detective with a sharp mind and an even sharper love for literature, felt at home here. Her keen senses, honed by years of solving small mysteries around town, tingled with anticipation. Today, however, was different. Today, she wasn't here to lose herself in a novel, she was here to solve a crime. It had all started with a peculiar discovery. Mr. Pembroke, the elderly librarian, had found a book with a bent bookmark tucked between its pages. The bookmark, made of thick, embossed leather, was creased sharply at an odd angle, as if deliberately folded to mark something significant. But what caught Holly's attention wasn't just the bend, it was the missing page. A single sheet had been carefully excised from the book, leaving behind only the faintest trace of its existence. The book in question was a rare first edition of the Chronicles of Elder Tree, a historical account of the town's founding. The stolen page, as Mr. Pembroke had tearfully explained, contained a map rumored to lead to a hidden treasure. Holly knelt beside the reading table, her fingers tracing the jagged edge where the page had been torn away. The bookmark lay beside her, its bend glinting in the soft light like a cryptic message. She picked it up, noting the intricate floral pattern etched into the leather. It was unique, almost too ornate for a simple placeholder. Her mind whirred with questions. Why bend the bookmark? Why not simply remove it or leave it flat? And, most importantly, who would steal a single page from a book and why? As she pondered, Holly's gaze swept the library. It was a quiet afternoon, with only a handful of patrons scattered among the shelves. There was Mrs. Whittaker, the town's resident gossip, who was pretending to read while eavesdropping on hushed conversations. Near the window, a young man in a tweed jacket scribbled furiously in a notebook, his brow furrowed in concentration. And then there was Mr. Finch, the library's janitor, who was dusting the shelves with a meticulousness that bordered on obsession. Any one of them could be the thief, or perhaps none at all. Holly decided to start with the obvious, the book itself. She examined the spine, the binding, the remaining pages. The cut was clean, surgical almost, suggesting the thief had used a sharp blade and a steady hand. It wasn't the work of an amateur. She then turned her attention to the bookmark. Its bend was precise, folding the leather into a perfect right angle. Holly's eyes narrowed. It was as if the bookmark was pointing to something, perhaps a clue left behind by the thief. She glanced at the page numbers. The missing page was page 47. Holly flipped to page 46 and page 48, scanning the text for any hints. Page 46 ended with a description of the town's old clock tower, while page 48 began with a discussion of the founder's family tree. Nothing immediately stood out, but Holly knew better than to dismiss details. She jotted down the information in her small leather-bound notebook, her pen moving in quick, decisive strokes. Next, she approached Mr. Pembroke, who was nervously adjusting his spectacles behind the circulation desk. Mr. Pembroke, she began, her voice calm but firm. The librarian shook his head, his hands trembling slightly. It's a reference book, Miss Arnold. It doesn't leave the library, but, well, many people have been reading it lately. There's been a surge of interest in the town's history, you see. Holly nodded, her mind already racing ahead. Can you recall anyone who seemed particularly interested in it? Mr. Pembroke furrowed his brow, thinking. Well, there was that young man, Mr. Ellis. I believe he's a historian, or so he claims. He's been here every day this week, poring over the Chronicles. And then there's Mrs. Whittaker, of course, though she's more interested in gossip than history. Oh, and Mr. Finch has been acting strangely lately. Holly's interest piqued at the mention of Mr. Finch. The janitor had always struck her as an odd character, quiet, meticulous, and perhaps a bit too attached to the library's treasures. She made a mental note to speak with him later. Before she could ask another question, the library's heavy oak door creaked open, and a gust of wind sent a shiver through the room. Holly turned to see a familiar figure, Detective Inspector Hargrove, the town's senior detective. He was a gruff man with a penchant for dismissing Holly's amateur sleuthing, as he called it. But today he looked unusually serious. "Miss Arnold," he said, "I heard there's been a theft." Holly bristled slightly but kept her composure. "Thank you, Inspector, but I believe I have it under control. It's just a missing page." Hargrove raised an eyebrow. "A missing page from a rare book, potentially worth a fortune if that treasure map is real." Holly forced a smile. Of course. But inwardly she resolved to solve the mystery before Hargrove could. This was her case, and she intended to prove her worth. Over the next few hours, Holly interviewed the library's patrons. Mrs. Whittaker was predictably unhelpful, more interested in speculating about Mr. Pembroke's love life than in discussing the book. The young historian, Mr. Ellis, was polite but evasive, claiming he had only skimmed the chronicles for his research. His notebook, however, was filled with detailed sketches of the town's landmarks, including the clock tower mentioned on page 46. Suspicious, Holly thought, but not incriminating. Finally, she approached Mr. Finch. The janitor was polishing a brass plaque with painstaking care, his eyes darting nervously as Holly drew near. "Mr. Finch," she said softly, "I noticed you've been spending a lot of time near the rare books section." He stiffened, his polishing cloth pausing mid-stroke. I don't know what you mean, Miss Arnold." Holly leaned closer, her voice gentle but probing. "You're very meticulous, Mr. Finch. I'm sure you notice things others don't." For a moment he hesitated, then shook his head vigorously. "No, nothing like that. I just dust the shelves." But Holly wasn't convinced. There was something in his eyes, a flicker of guilt, perhaps, or fear. She decided to press further. "Mr. Finch, if you know something, it's important to tell me. The stolen page could be very valuable." At that, Mr. Finch's face paled, and he glanced around the library as if expecting someone to be watching. "Why, I can't." Holly's heart quickened. "What's too risky, please, Mr. Finch?" He swallowed hard, then leaned in close, his voice barely audible. "There's a man, he comes in sometimes, late at night. He's not a patron, but he has a key. I've seen him near the rare books. He threatened me." Holly's mind raced. A mysterious man with a key? That could be the thief or perhaps an accomplice. "What does he look like?" Before Mr. Finch could answer, a loud crash echoed through the library. Holly spun around to see a bookshelf toppling over, sending books flying in all directions. Amid the chaos, a shadowy figure darted toward the exit. Holly shouted, but the figure was already gone, disappearing into the twilight. Heart pounding, Holly rushed to the fallen shelf. Amid the scattered books, she spotted something glinting on the floor, a small, ornate key. She picked it up, turning it over in her hand. It was old, tarnished, and engraved with the initials E.L. E.L. Could that be Mr. Ellis, the historian? Or perhaps someone else entirely? As Holly pondered the clue, Inspector Hargrove appeared at her side, his expression grim. "It looks like our thief is getting desperate." But Holly was already one step ahead. She had a plan. That night, under the cover of darkness, Holly returned to the library. She had convinced Mr. Pembroke to lend her the spare key, and now she crept through the silent halls, her flashlight casting eerie shadows on the walls. If the mysterious man returned, she would be ready. Hours passed, and just as Holly's eyelids began to droop, she heard the soft click of a lock turning. She stiffened, her senses on high alert. Footsteps echoed through the library, slow and deliberate. Holly pressed herself against a bookshelf, peering through the gaps. The figure was tall, cloaked in a long coat, his face obscured by a wide-brimmed hat. He moved with purpose, heading straight for the rare books section. Holly's breath caught as he pulled out a book of the same chronicles with the bent bookmark. As he opened it, Holly stepped forward, her voice steady. The man froze, then slowly turned to face her. In the dim light, Holly gasped. It was Mr. Ellis, the historian. But before she could speak, he lunged at her, knocking the flashlight from her hand. They struggled in the darkness, books tumbling around them. Holly fought back, her mind racing. She had to outsmart him. With a sudden burst of strength, she grabbed the bent bookmark from the table and hurled it at his face. Startled, he stumbled back, giving Holly just enough time to grab a heavy tome and swing it at his head. He crumpled to the floor unconscious. Breathing heavily, Holly retrieved her flashlight and shone it on the fallen man. It was indeed Mr. Ellis, or so she thought. But as she looked closer, she noticed something odd. His notebook, which had fallen open, contained not historical notes, but detailed plans for heist. And clipped to the page was a photograph of the stolen map. Holly's eyes widened. The map wasn't just a rumor, it was real, and Mr. Ellis had been after it all along. But why leave the bookmark bent? Why not take the whole book? Then it hit her. The bend in the bookmark kit was a signal, a way to mark the page without drawing attention. But to whom? As if in answer, the library door creaked open again, and another figure stepped inside. Holly turned, her heart pounding, only to see Mr. Finch, the janitor, standing in the doorway, a look of horror on his face. Holly whispered. He stammered, his eyes darting between Holly and the unconscious Mr. Ellis. I came to stop him. He forced me to help him, to leave the bookmark as a signal. Holly's mind whirred. So Mr. Finch had been coerced into helping the thief, but had ultimately decided to do the right thing. She smiled faintly. You did well, Mr. Finch. But just as she spoke, Mr. Ellis groaned and stirred. In a flash, he was on his feet, grabbing the book and bolting for the door. Holly gave chase, but he was fast disappearing into the night. Yet, as she stood on the library steps, watching him vanish, Holly felt a strange sense of calm. She had the key, the notebook, and Mr. Finch's testimony. It was enough to build a case, even if the thief had escaped for now. The next morning, as the sun rose over Eldertree, Holly sat with Inspector Hargrove, explaining her deductions. The bent bookmark had indeed been a signal, left by Mr. Finch under duress to mark the page for Mr. Ellis. The key belonged to Ellis, who had likely bribed or blackmailed someone for access. And the stolen page? It was still missing, but Holly had a feeling it wouldn't be for long. Hargrove, to his credit, listened intently, nodding in approval. Not bad, Miss Arnold. Holly smiled, her eyes gleaming with determination. Thank you, Inspector. And with that, she turned the page, ready for her next adventure. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this story. Please don't forget to like, and even better, like and subscribe. Thank you very much, and I hope you have had or have a great day.